Hello, this is Janet from janetsandberg.com, and you're listening to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast, the weekly show that talks to peers and professionals who open up about their darkest moments when they felt like ending it all, why they didn't, and how they transformed their lives in order to triumph over the darkness and despair. Please remember to subscribe if you'd like to hear more inspiring stories. All right. Welcome to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. Today we are here with Tammi Morrison, who is joining us from the other side of the country. And I love how I get to meet people from all over the country and the world doing this podcast. So Tammi, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am so grateful to be here, Janet. It's just my pleasure. I'm a wife and a mother and a grandmother. I'm also a spiritual teacher, a mentor, an intuitive healer, an author. I'm a TV radio personality. I'm also a creator because I found my creation spirit. And so I create Reiki infused jewelry. I also create healing bath soaks, and I create cleansing lavender spray, which these things just popped up and I just started creating, and people started buying them. So I enjoyed that. And one of the things I love to do is to help people to connect to their intuition, to really get them to get into their body and feel into how they receive their messages so that they can access their intuition and find their peace and their joy. Um, and I'm so grateful to be here, Janet, and just to share and to shed light on this amazing topic that you have today.
Thank you. And yeah, that's also why we connected, because we both do the same things professionally. Didn't
Yeah,
even know. Facebook is amazing for bringing people together.
right?
Yes. So let's dive into why you're here and sharing your story. What was going on in your life when you were in the darkness and having those little nasty thoughts come up that are telling you that maybe you just maybe shouldn't be here anymore?
Okay, I can think of a time when when I was in the middle of divorce.
Mm-hmm.
That was a rough time, and for me, it wasn't rough because I didn't want the divorce. I actually did want the divorce. I was tired. I had been with my ex-husband for 20 years, and I just, it's like we kept going round and round and round, and I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? This has to end. I cannot do
Mm-hmm.
this much more. I can't. I don't feel the love from this man, and I don't love him. I don't think I love him.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. And so as I started going through that, um, he actually ended up leaving me, which was perfect, and I was really grateful. However, after that, it's like stuff started setting in. Okay, now I gotta take care of everything, and my children were teenagers, so it's like, they eat you out of house and home at that age. And and they have needs, and there's they require more money and things like that. And so
Yeah.
there was a time when I remember it so clearly. I was sitting in my house, and I ended up having to sell my house because I couldn't afford it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was killing me. And I was working like a mule. And I think about it now, all of this time corresponded with the burnout from my career. Because what I didn't
Oh,
share was I had been a nurse for 30 years. Now it's 30 now, but at that time it was probably closer to 20. But
right.
I started feeling so burned out and so tired of that. And so I remember this one day I was just sitting in my house, and I started thinking, maybe it might just be better if I go. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, my kids are just about grown, and I had taught them how to take care of themselves. So I was like, they'll be fine, and in my mind, I was like, their daddy ain't gonna take them for sure, because that was just not what he was gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And I said, maybe it's just time for me to go. And I would think I was probably right around 40. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I've been here, long enough, and I've done this thing. I've been a wife, I've been a mother, all of these things, and who am I? And so I was like, you know what, maybe it's just time for me to move on to that next life. That was how
Yeah.
I thought. I sat and I thought this for, it was probably a good solid day that I thought that.
Yeah.
It was almost like I snapped back into myself. It's like I almost jumped up and slapped myself because I said no. Because at that point, I had worked mental health and stuff. So I knew about a lot of that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, I need to talk to somebody. So I went in and I talked to somebody. I got some help because I felt like, not only did I feel like I wanted to leave this place, because I never really felt like it was my home anyway.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially, spiritually, it's like I know I cannot be from here. This is a crazy place. So I thought if I just go, it would be okay. It would be all right. And then I had this other feeling where, I wanted to just unalive my ex-husband.
Yes, that's a whole
Yeah.
other story.
Right? So I thought, if I go, I need to go and talk to somebody. So I reached out and I found a counselor. And at the time, I was going to church a lot. And so this girl, she actually was a part of my church, and she had started her own counseling thing. And so I felt like, okay, she's not only, spiritual, but she's also, mental health
Yeah.
counselor.
Yeah.
And so I went and I talked to her, and I think I had what, 4 sessions or something with her, which was perfect for me, and it was enough. But it was something that, typically culturally, um, we don't do that.
Hmm.
We don't talk to people, and I know that that's something that we need to talk about as well, because typically different cultures don't go get help.
Right.
Typically, um, African American cultures, Asian people,
Right.
and Latino, Latinas, you just don't do that. You
Hmm.
don't go outside, and talk to people about your business and all this stuff. Is how we were basically raised and trained and conditioned. But I
Hmm.
was like, no, I need to talk to somebody because, it's almost like a snapback. I thought, I don't have any grandkids yet. I haven't seen any grandkids. My children aren't quite grown yet. And I felt like at that point, I was like, they need me more because, teenagers, they're going through all kind of stuff. Their hormones
Yeah.
are raging. They don't know what the hell. They're big enough to look like adults, but they're not really adults.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I wanted to be there for them. But that was really the thing that kind of snapped me back, was like, I gotta keep pushing. You know what I mean?
There's more to
But
do. There's more to
but it
see. There's
felt,
more to experience.
yes, that was the part. I was like, okay, there's more out there. And for me, once after I got that counseling, I talked to her and I was able to kind of reconcile. She did some amazing things when I think back on it, because it's so many years ago now. But she did like she gave me like exercises to do,
Hmm.
to help me to see, and and to recognize and realize that, it was better to be here, than to transition. Even though, a part of my mind was like, I think it would be okay to transition because all this will be over and I won't have to deal with any of this at all. And then I could come
Hmm.
back to it, I could try it again.
Yeah. Just get
And
reincarnated and start again.
that's what I said. I was like, I can try it again. There are babies being born every day. I'm like, I can do that. But something inside of me was like, no, let me snap back. And every time I think about it, it's like, oh my God. And then I moved across the country. So I moved from South Carolina to Arizona
Okay.
because I was at work one night and the spirit told me it was time for me to leave that place. And so I did. So I left, moved across the country, and I think I moved across the country on $500. And I
Wow.
had, yeah, I had $500 in faith and an astronomical car note. The blessed thing is I had a place to stay. My cousin, was like, come on, you can stay with me. So I stayed with her for 6 months, but I had like struggled trying to get a job and all this stuff, which was new for me because never have I struggled as a nurse to get a job.
Right.
Never. And for some reason, I don't know what was going on in this this particular time, but it was hard. And so I got one job and then I got fired, which was something I never happened to me ever before either. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So then I got another job. I got fired like right before the 90 days. They were kind of evil.
What?
Yeah, they were a hateful company. And I was like, okay. And it was wild because it was never my work. It's always crazy stuff. Like
Yeah.
the manager didn't like me and I didn't really like her. And I'm not an ass kisser. I'm not kiss anybody's ass. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I wasn't raised like
Yep.
that. And so I was like, all right. And so I have went through this particular time too, where I thought the same thing. I started walking, just doing a lot of walking because, I have a job, so I didn't want to waste gas in this car I could barely pay for anyway, right? And so I would do a lot of walking, and so I would walk around by the mountains in Arizona and I would just, just pray. And I would just start talking to God, talking to my angels, talking to my spirit team. I was like, I don't know what to do. And I felt the same way. It was like, okay, and I didn't realize that I was dealing with depression. I
Right.
didn't realize, but I think when I look back, I've dealt with it many, many years. Just didn't
Hmm.
know. It's like I could push through.
Yeah. It's hard to see it when you're in it sometimes. You're just like, because this is just how you feel and it kind of comes on gradually and you get, you know,
Yeah.
more
And
and
you don't
more
even
in it.
recognize it,
And
right?
then, yeah. And then suddenly you're like, wait a second.
Yes, that was it. It was like, okay. And I had actually done like some psych drugs earlier in my life because I had gone to the doctor and I was like, listen, I don't know what's going on with me. I'm feeling anxious. I'm having this, that, and the third. And so I tried a few psych drugs, and guess what? Those don't work for me.
Hmm.
Whatever side effects they have is what I have. Like I took this one, and it was supposed to give you suicidal ideations, and guess what?
Hmm.
It did.
Right.
I thought I was going to kill my damn self, so I stopped taking that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that
That's
was
why
like,
we're taking them is to stop those thoughts,
right. I was
not make
like,
them worse. But sometimes that does happen. Yeah.
okay, so I just concluded after a while. I mean, I took a few and I was like, you know what? I don't think those are for me. That's just not something that I can do. I
Yeah.
have to do it in a different way. So I would walk the mountains, and just where the mountains were and just go out there and just, be in nature
Yeah.
and actually, have these conversations with the spirit, with my spirit team. And and I had gone through this time too. I was like, well, maybe it's time for me to just go. Maybe that's what this is telling me. Because I felt so bad about it. Because you got to think it had been 20 years or so that I was doing this work that I've never, and I felt like I probably could have been fired a few times from my mouth because I speak my truth. I don't care, and but I never was. And so when that happened, it just like flipped something in my mind. Am
Hmm.
I good enough? What is wrong with me? All
Yeah.
of these kind of thoughts. And I know these are thoughts that we feel at these times when we feel like we can just leave here,
Yeah.
But my
Yeah.
other thing was, I don't like pain. Like, I want a tattoo, but I'm scared of the pain. I don't like pain. And so I'm like, well, how would I do this without having pain?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's a
And
good question.
right. So that was one of the times when I thought deep, because most of the time I didn't go deep on this because I was like, well, if I go deep, then that means I can do it,
Hmm.
So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And what I learned
And
to
it
know
gets more
how,
real. It gets more scary. Yeah.
yes, it's like, because you can step into it. It's
Hmm.
almost like when you can believe something, then you can achieve it, right? Well, it's the same thing with that, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I can believe that, I can do this. I can leave here. I can be free, because I know that's what happens through people's minds because it's happened with mine.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm done with this life and this time because so many things have happened, in my life that I felt like I could conceive of as being bad.
Right.
Was it
Yeah.
really bad? No, not really, but it's because of where you are in your mind, that it's just that's what you see,
Yeah.
and it's like okay, I've been through this, and I've seen it a lot of times with children that have been abused, like growing up,
Hmm.
and I didn't go through anything like that, and I'm so grateful. But I know people and I've met people and seen it, and it's like, okay, yeah, you were abused by the people that were supposed to take care of you.
Yeah.
So going forward, you don't trust nobody, right?
Right.
And
You
and
see
that includes
through
you.
the blinders
Yes,
that
yes,
and the perspective that we've been taught, whether that's, what you learned growing up or just like what depression lets you see, that's what we see.
yes, yes. And that was something. I mean, it really is. It's huge when you think about it. And I'm so grateful for you for doing the show to shine the light on it, because it really needs the light needs to be shined, because it's happening so much, and to babies.
Yeah.
I think about somebody, if they're under 25, to me that's a baby.
Hmm.
Like, oh my God, what could be so bad? And it's funny because my grandmother used to say this to me, and I use it now. And I was like, okay, here I am, I'm officially old. And so my grandmother used to say, because she was my person, so I would go talk to her and I'd be like, Mom, I used to call her Mama because I felt like she was my mama. And I'd be like, Mom, so and so and so and so, this is happening, and I'd be all animated and all this and that, and and like people would tell you when you're young, you're too much, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so I'd be like, oh, I don't know what to do about this, and da da da. And what's so wild, girl? She would say, just live a little longer.
Oh, wow.
And it was so, and it would be, I would be pissed, really,
Oh,
secretly.
of course, because it's not that's not the answer you wanted.
No, I need to know what was, what did I need to do or whatever. And she would say it because she was even more soft spoken than I am. She would say, just live a little longer. And she would smile, and that would be it. Sometimes she would say
End of
something, but
story.
I would tell her, I said, I must be really glad when you stopped speaking in parables. But she never really did. And then what happened is later on, I got it.
Of
It took some
course,
time. It's like,
because you lived longer.
live longer. It's like, live a little longer, and I think about that for these kids. You
Yeah.
almost want to say, live a little longer. Yeah, you're going to go through some stuff in your life. And I'm telling you, sometimes it's horrific, the things that you go through in your life
Hmm.
to you, because how we're looking at it.
Yeah.
It's kind of how you need somebody on the outside sometimes to help you see shit.
Yeah.
Because you can't see it because you're in the middle of it,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and it's happening to you,
Yeah.
but
One of my good friends invented the word reperspectivize.
oh, I like that.
You just need somebody else to reperspectivize things for you.
I like that. Read perspective. I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that.
it's a great word, but just to help you see things
Yeah.
from a different perspective.
Yeah. Because if you're in the middle, you can't see.
No.
It's just all on you. It's like,
And you're so tired and you've been doing this for so long and you're fighting and you're struggling and you're just like, I can't do this one more day,
mm,
and then you just need somebody else to be like, but you can,
yes.
but you
And you know
can.
what? And it's not that bad.
Hmm.
I remember I had a client come through because I work at a metaphysical shop,
Hmm.
doing readings
Beautiful.
like once a month. I just go in there and I do like 4 or 5 hours or something on a Saturday. And so I had a client come through, and she was like, yeah, I don't think I can do this and this and this and that. And I looked at her and I said, well, what's stopping you? And she said, well, I don't know. I never really thought about it. And I was like, but the thing is do you actually enjoy doing that? And she was like, I actually do. She said, but it just seems like it's so hard. I said, well, sometimes things are a little bit hard as you go through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I said, but the thing is the point is you got to keep going,
Yeah. And it's
and
okay to rest. It's okay to just
yes,
hit pause and rest.
yes,
We were talking before the show that both of us spent the whole morning in bed today. I
yes,
obviously am getting over a cold, which you can hear in my voice.
yes,
And, sometimes you just need that. And it's okay to allow yourself those
yes,
days where you just hit pause and
yes,
rest.
yes.
And so that you can
Just
get
say
up
no.
sstronger.
Yes. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, I have learned, and it's been a journey to learn that. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I was your push girl, and then when I started getting into human design, that really kind of helped me to do a lot of shifting, because then I realized that some of the ways that I have done things are contrary to how the hell I'm designed. And that's
Right.
why it
Yeah.
felt so crazy. It's
Well, we
like,
learn things from other people, like growing up and when we're younger, and well, I guess it continues. But a lot of things our parents teach us about the way
yeah,
that they do things, but they're different people than we are. So what works for them doesn't necessarily work for us. And you got to learn that. And you got to, and I'm still working on it. I'm 51 years old and I'm still like recently, I can't remember. Oh, it was about like cleaning the house or something. And I I will be getting tested for ADHD, but I don't know if it's just my crazy brain or if I actually have ADHD, but I can't do any one thing for like a long time. So the way I was taught was you do one thing until it's finished and then you do the next thing.
yeah,
And
no,
that worked for my parents and that's how they taught me to do things, and it's a struggle, and I'm finally at this age being like it's okay to do things the way that works for me. And the
yes,
way that works for me is to, do a little bit, clean a little bit in this room, and then do something else, and then come back to it and do something else, and just sort of alternate between tasks. And I get more done that way. It looks like I have 12 things on the go, but I actually, in the end, by the end of the day, they're all done. They're just not done like in order.
yes,
So
exactly,
it's about learning what works for you and allowing yourself
yes,
to do what works for you, not the way
yes,
that other people tell you.
yes,
Um, and I think
mhm,
that works into our depression and our the
yes,
heaviness of the world too, is us struggling to be who we are and
hmm,
just do things, even if that's different than the way society tells you need to do things.
I agree. And it's almost like, we've been conditioned that way, because we're in the same age group. I just turned 55 on the first.
Oh, happy
And
birthday.
so, thank you. And so it's the way we've been conditioned. It's like when we went to school, they didn't train us to do the things that we're doing, to use our intuition and connect to
Right.
the spirit and all this kind of stuff. No, they trained us to work. That's what they trained us to do. Work, 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 work.
Yeah.
And I would be curious to know, do you know what your human design is?
I don't. I have looked it up. I've done like the little quizzes, but I haven't gotten super into it yet. So, and I can't remember.
I'm telling you, it's so eye-opening when you look at that, because at first you look at it, you're like, I don't know about this. But then when you start diving into it and digging into it a little bit, because I'm not an expert in anything, but I just started kind of diving into mine,
Yeah.
and it answers so many questions.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, yeah, but it's okay. And that part too about, just being okay. And what I find is, because, even with business and stuff, you got people that'll tell you, oh, well, you just need to do the one thing. I
Yeah.
don't know why you're doing, this and this and this and this and this. I said, because that's who I am.
Right.
And you don't have to understand it,
Hmm.
because this is what I like to do. That's why I do these things, because I enjoy it. And I feel like it's what I'm supposed to do, is enjoy.
Hmm.
I'm not supposed
Yeah.
to be a robot, and I'm not supposed to be doing, what this person is doing. Just because you follow Gabby Bernstein doesn't mean you're gonna do the same shit she does.
Right.
And the other part is too, it has to be aligned for you. It's like you said, it's got to be what you like, what you do, what you deserve, all of these things. And I just love the fact that when you start getting on that, then you start avoiding that depression.
Hmm.
Or like for me, I feel like the same like you. I feel like I probably should get tested. I know I'm probably ADHD or ADD or one of those things, because I'm the same way. Like I'll be doing this, and my husband laughs. He's like, "Okay, what are you doing now?" But he's supportive, which is amazing. But it's like, okay, yeah. He goes, all right, and he goes, I know your mind was working.
Right.
He goes, I know your mind was working. He was like, And I was just waiting for you to tell me what you're working on. Because I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna clean this room right here, right now, and I'm gonna do this section, and then after that, I gotta go do something else.
Right.
I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna, finish this story that I'm working on because I'm working on a book of short stories on patients that I have had over the years.
Oh,
Since I've been
awesome.
working on it. Yeah, I they tell me their stories because
Yeah.
they have talked to me on my forehead. So I would go in the room, and as soon as I walk in, the first thing I say is, "Well, how are you doing?" And I work night shift a lot of times, so you had a little more time. But I
Yeah.
was like, how's your day going? How was your day? What happened? And then they spill everything, and then then they start talking, especially when I worked on the cardiology unit, because the people would come in and they would be like, "Oh, I thought I was having a heart attack." They didn't find nothing,
Hmm.
and I would say, "It's stress. What is going on with you?" And before I knew it, they done told me their whole life,
Yeah.
everything that was going on. So I wrote stories about it. So I was like,
Beautiful. Yeah.
it's
What we
okay.
learn.
Yeah, it's like, it's okay. It's all right. But yeah, so to me, being your authentic self, I think is what will help us to stay away from those type of feelings and things like that, so that we don't feel like we want to leave here, because we are in our authenticity. We're in our lane and our zone,
Hmm.
you know, and just looking at that from a space of, okay, this is who I am. This is who I am. Even if you don't know what you do, eventually you'll figure it out, and being
Yeah.
okay with that,
Yeah.
because it takes time, I think.
It does. It
You
does.
know,
It's this whole life is a learning thing.
yeah, marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
What
And you
people say.
just find out every day what works for you. And what works for you when you're 20 is not going to be what works for you when you're 40 necessarily. It changes as you change, as you grow and live longer.
Yes,
And you just got to keep evolving, which makes it hard.
yes,
Um,
yes,
and I was
yes.
talking to my husband the other day, and we were saying how, there's just so many things as we get older that we realize the previous generation just never told us about being a grown up, about being an adult, you
No,
know, and I feel like we're changing that.
yeah.
Um, our parents didn't talk to us about anything really. So
You know what we
we're changing that for the next generation. I feel like it's just going to keep getting better, and now we have more avenues like podcasts where we can share our wisdom
Yes,
and stories and learnings and teachings and help the next generation and the people. Once we're on the other side of something, we talk about it, and
yes,
then we help the people who are just starting, because we're all the same. We're all just people. We're all just humans going through
yes,
the same shit at
yes,
different times. So let's
exactly.
just talk about it.
Yes, I
So,
agree, because it's like if you don't talk about it, then it's all bottled up inside, because we're all ashamed of feeling that way, right?
yeah.
We're all ashamed, and the shame is what keeps us, and also what helps to perpetuate that, helps people to
Hmm.
actually do the act of unaliving themselves. And it's like, because you're ashamed, and especially our generation. Oh
Yeah.
my God. We are ashamed. We are like, no, no, because you don't do that. And then if you were raised like religious, and especially like Catholic and Pentecostal and all these cultish religions, and so you think, okay, well, I'm gonna go to hell if I commit suicide.
Right.
And I think that probably has stopped a lot of people because they thought about that. They were like, oh, no, 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 I'm gonna to hell if I commit suicide. Which, I read the Bible all through, and I ain't seen no documentation of that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother
A
thing.
whole
But
nother show, right?
yeah, but yeah, you're right. It is the shame and the stigma
Yeah,
and the stories we've been told. Um,
yeah,
and that, if we have these thoughts, it means we're terrible people.
Right, exactly.
And that's totally not the case. It means you're a normal human being as far as I'm concerned.
At least it means you admit it to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because many people, they walk around, and I'm sure you probably had somebody just like I did. I said, well, I would love to interview you. I said, but I don't know if I'm qualified to come on, and I really felt like that because I was like, well, she's probably talking to people who actually were, close to the act. They actually were ready to hang themselves, which I can't even fucking imagine. That would just be painful. I'm like, no. And but I was like, maybe. And then when you reached out, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can talk about that. I can share on that because I have had the thoughts.
Yeah.
I've never pushed it forward, but I know that, you know, the key is
Yes.
getting some help somehow, some way, getting
Yeah.
some help,
Yeah.
and that is really what it's all about, is when you start to feel those feelings, getting some help, like immediately, even if you have to call the crisis hotline.
Yes.
You can call the crisis hotline. I would not recommend calling 911.
No, but the crisis text line is 988.
Yes, that's
And then there's another one, 741-741, in the
yes,
US.
yes,
And there are other ones. And in the description of my podcast, you can find numbers and ways to reach out if you are in a crisis.
yeah, because that's important, and
Yeah.
I remember I used to work at a detox mental health place, and that was what we used to have to do.
Yeah.
Like we would get people that, because we had to pre-screen them over the phone. And of course, they had to have the right type of insurance coverage or whatever. If they didn't have that, they weren't coming there. And so we would have to give them, tools to help them,
Yeah.
say, okay, look, we can't take you here, but this is what I want you to do. And I would give them the number to the crisis people. And sometimes I had one lady that I actually called on the three-way. I actually used my cell phone and I called the crisis hotline with her on the other, line, and just conference them in.
Connected them.
Yeah, because I felt like she wasn't going to call, and I felt like
Right.
she needed to call.
Hmm.
And we couldn't take her as a patient because she didn't have the right insurance or whatever. And so, so yeah, we were able to connect her like that. I don't know whatever happened with her, but I was really glad that I was able to do that because I felt her. I felt her. I
Yeah.
was like, she's really going to do it, because some people, you talk to them and they're not really going to do it, but it's a cry for help.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
don't
you want,
know what else to do.
right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, and sometimes, what I noticed, especially with some of the younger ones, sometimes, and I hate to say this, but sometimes it's simple shit. I mean, for us, we're like, what? You didn't kill yourself
Mhm.
because of that? It's one of those live a little longer things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
And if you just talk to somebody, then you'll find the solution that you need, and you can keep going, and it's easy. But yeah, it's getting over that shame and that stigma and everything about just asking for help.
yeah. And do you find that people are more ready to ask for help these days? Or is it, I mean, because it doesn't look like it to me when I open up Google and I see 25 and they then committed suicide, and this TikToker then, I mean, come on, what is that about?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like with social media, we're getting more and more isolated, even though we're able to connect with other people more easily. I feel like we're getting more and more isolated. Um,
I see that.
and we're losing that personal connection, which makes it harder to reach out because you're like, oh, I don't really know them. We've been, you know, we follow each other on Instagram and whatever, but I don't really know them well enough to do something, to talk to them about something big, right?
Right.
Or something that really actually matters.
Yes. Yes.
And I think we're having fewer of those deeper, more personal connections
Yeah, I agree.
with
And it's,
people that we can actually ask for help. And while I'm saying that, if anybody needs to, you can always message me,
yes.
and I'm here. So
Yes, and that's the thing. It's like, we we're not feeling connected.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it happens more than we know. And the asking for help part, I want to share this just really quickly. Is I had a friend, which she's a Facebook friend. We met on Facebook. We've been friends now for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. We actually did our Reiki classes together. That's how we met.
Oh, nice.
But we did them online. So,
Okay. Yeah.
so we met, like that. And she and I, we've been friends. And so she told me one day, I was talking to her about something, and she said, she said, you need to let somebody help you. And I was like,
Hmm.
what you talking about, Willis? And I sat with that thing for a minute, and I was, doing my journaling and stuff like that. And I thought, she's right, because I was dealing with some stuff, and I do Reiki and I do energy and all these things. And so I was just doing my own stuff and running energy through me, because I do that every day anyway, like before I get out of bed, when I get ready to go, before I go to sleep, I do that anyway, right? So I was like, I don't need nobody. I'm, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like this is the same way people feel like when they're feeling these feelings of, suicidal ideations. I feel like that's how they feel. Like, I
Mhm.
don't need anybody. I can help myself. I don't need to, talk to anybody
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And that was kind of how I felt about that. And I actually ended up getting a girl to do some Reiki sessions on me. She had an amazing special, girl. I was like, yeah, I got to do it. Even I was like, yeah, I got to do it. But she did like 3 sessions on me for something like, it was a ridiculous amount, like $120 or something. And I
Hmm.
was like, but I needed it.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful for her for that. And
Yeah.
it was like I found her at the perfect time, because she was running this special, and I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's the same way that people feel like when they're, at this space where, they're just in this deep, dark tunnel.
Hmm.
Because that's what it feels like. It feels like you're in this deep, dark tunnel and you can't see no light.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how people feel if they, if they just reach out to somebody, and somebody that is good to talk to,
Hmm.
because sometimes people reach out to people that aren't good to talk to.
Right.
They're like not helpful. you you need somebody that's going to be helpful, and particularly, I say a mental health practitioner,
Hmm.
coach, counselor, therapist, whatever, but
Yeah.
somebody that understands that, so that, they can actually be a blessing to you, and they can help you to come out of that darkness, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All
So,
right. I feel like we could keep talking all day long, but
oh,
I think we will end things here for our listeners. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom and your spirit with us today. And yeah, that's it. I feel like there was something more I was going to say, but my foggy cold head isn't allowing that thought to come through. So I'll just say thank you again.
and I'll say it was my pleasure, and you're welcome. And I'm really grateful that I came on, because at first I was like, well, no. But when I started really digging into it after I talked to you, I was like, she's right. There are times, and I think it's important too for us to share, from our age group, you
Mhm.
know, because our age group, we don't typically do it. There are some, I've seen here and there, but on the whole, it's usually the younger people mostly, the ones that need to live a little longer, So I'm just grateful, that I could come on here and share something that would help to shine the light on this, because I know that it's so needful and it's so important. And the fact that you took on this platform is huge, because it's so necessary. And I'm, hoping that there's a way that you can just get out there so that people can really be able to listen and hear something that's going to help them, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful
Thank
for
you.
you, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for listening. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant for more, and that it really does get better. If you are in crisis, there are numbers that you can call or text to get the help that you need. That information for Canada and the US is in the description below each episode. If you are in immediate crisis, please call 911. We love you, and I hope you'll listen again.